So today's topic, right, today is the first of 3 weekends and the first of 3 days. And what we are going to be talking about for today is really questioning our own parenting styles. And today, this panel session is about the rise of the conscious parent. Yeah. So I'm excited. I've got a lovely lineup of panelists here. Come, let's start. So, Puva, I'm just going to start, okay? Let me introduce each of you. Puva is a passionate therapist who supports family and children in their work to embrace diversity and to capitalize on the children's strength and on the parents' strengths of both.
Because we are in a partnership.
And then Lynn is a trained lawyer, a mother of 3, and today a pastor to children, married couples, and families. And we've been working with families for the past 20 years. Wonderful. And we have our third panelist, who is a single mom of 3, the CEO and founder of Liyanna Musfirah Network, and the author of Spiritual Strength is in our staff. Hi. So I think this is where you see us just right the way we are, yeah? So really, conscious parenting is a model of reality where it is about raising the parental child more than the child. We live in a society that asserts that parents know everything and that children always have to listen. But what if parenting is really a journey where the focus is not on the child but on our personal development? Okay, so as we start, let's just focus, right? We live in such a fast-paced world. But being conscious is really a skill that most of us are not trained, and we don't have the luxury for. Everything is like shared in 1-2 weeks ago, right? So let's talk about self-awareness and what it even means. Puva, how can a parent practice being more self-aware?
So we have this line that says connect before correct. So when we look at our child before correcting, it's taking time to connect. And what happens to this connection is understanding, why am I getting upset? So that connection time is for you to reflect, what is my trigger? Why am I getting upset? And is it because my child is not meeting the expectation? An example would be, child does not eat dinner. You put it there, sorry, child is not eating dinner, and I'm sitting there, I'm getting angry. Before I say, why are you not eating dinner? I need to go back and say, sit down, look at the child and say, is this not nice? What's happening here? That is number 1, self-awareness. Because you are wanting to connect. What is wrong before jumping the gun and making assumptions? Because we are so time-strapped, we make a lot of assumptions without seeing the person as a personality.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I love what you say. So the key word is to always remind ourselves to connect.
Yes.
And when that becomes the priority, it's no longer the task that I need to do, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. And Lynn, if I can just ask you, right, often, right, our identity is projected onto the child. For example, my child throws a tantrum, in public shopping center, and then it makes me look bad. And many parents, right, keep quiet, because it's about my image, right? How do we detach my identity from my child and see my child for who they are uniquely as their own being?
Yeah, Julia, I think this is something that has happened to many parents. Yeah, to have their child throw a tantrum with friends in the public. Yeah, but I think that what is useful for us to know as a parent is that, why do you feel this way? Yeah, because many times I think we feel judged, or there's a perception there's a certain kind of behavior that our child has to live up to. And if I'm a parent and then my child is not behaving appropriately in a certain place, I fail as a parent. So when we ask ourselves why, we will be able to know how to handle it. And so I feel that you have to sort it within yourself. Why do you feel this way? Is it because you need to maybe build up on your confidence or to believe in yourself more? Yeah, and I believe that as a parent, we're humble because we are constantly learning from our kids, from amongst parents, like-minded parents like ourselves. Yeah. But we also need to be confident.
Yes.
Yeah, and the other question I would say is that when the thoughts come that you are being judged, or you feel that you have failed somehow, because as a parent, your child is behaving this way, then ask ask yourself, first of all, is the thought that you have, is it true? Is it true that you have failed? Most likely it's not, Your child could be throwing a tantrum because he's tired. There are certain different factors behind the situation. And the second question is, ask yourself, this thought that you have, is it helpful to you? Because if it's not helpful, discard it away.
Yeah.
Don't even entertain it. And just be happy. Just, deal with the situation as it comes. And then, of course, talk to your child appropriately in a certain, privately later on. Yeah. And just be happy as a parent. Don't be stressed out. Yeah, I think that's what we need to remind ourselves.
Wonderful. I love what you share, because I think often, right, we intertwine my identity with my child without even being conscious. So I think when we consciously can separate that my child's misbehavior is not a reflection of my bad parenting, and even if it is, so what?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I think there's this expectation that we have that we always need to have obedient kids who always listen, high scores, Okay, so if we continue the discussion on conscious, the line of being conscious, Liyanna, your story is marvelous. Even as a religious head, right? When you decide for a divorce, how did you know that it's a conscious decision? It's not like a reaction, or when,
Alright. First of all, everyone look beautiful today. Good morning. Hello, everyone. Hello, viewers. We may look very pretty today, but we also are real human beings with our own sets of worries to think about. So one of the worries that I had to really contemplate was filing for a divorce after my 7 years of marriage, and I have 3 children, still very, very little, and the societal expectation for a perfect family unit. Everyone believed that only if the unit is perfect, and then your children can be successful children. So before, I remember I had to go through a lot of pondering, reflection. Am I doing this for me? Am I doing this for the children? But at the end of the day, I love what Lynn was saying, that, and Junior was saying about, we are different people, but we're all in one ecosystem. We respect each other's needs and priorities, but at the same time, we cannot compromise our needs as well. So I think when I become a young mother at the age of 24, I became a mother of 3 children. I feel that no, my children needs more and beyond, and I should be neglected. I should be rejected. I should be pushed aside, because my children needs first. All my children needs everything first. But then I realized, if I'm not happy, my children are not happy. And this may look like a very child, it's very petty, but it's not. It's not. If the mother is not happy, if you're not a full tank, you won't be able to give anything at all. So that was one of the things I realized. I need to put my religious figure aside, my influencer figure aside. And at that point of time, I was actually shooting a few shows on national TV. So I was going back and forth in court and also shooting for national TV. So it was really like, should I just wait until the shooting is over so my image is clean? So there were a lot of expectations that I need to think about, that I actually drowned what I actually wanted. So I think this is a safe space where we need to allow mothers to actually, or parents actually, I'm so sorry if I'm always talking about mothers, parents actually to put themselves first. Because if you're really conscious about who you are, what you need, what you want, everything else will be like a domino effect. If you're okay, everything will be okay. It's like an ecosystem, and we are the core of it. Because sometimes we feel that everyone is like a puzzle, we need it. But actually, if the core of the ecosystem is strong, it's like a domino effect. Yeah.
I love what you share, and I want to move the conversation on to expectations, right? Because there were so many expectations. I'm the religious head. I'm a influencer. I mean, if I'm a nobody, it really doesn't matter. But then the talk that happens, and yet you chose to stand your ground, not to wait for a more convenient time, but to stay true to your internal compass. And I think that's very, very powerful.
I love that eternal compass. Wow, that's tweetable. Twitterable or tweetable? Tweetable?
Twitterable.
Yeah, not bad. Eternal compass. Okay, I'll snatch that from you.
Okay, can. Okay, and then so on the line of expectations, so I want to go around to Puva again. You mentioned that developmentally, a lot of kids are not ready to match parents' expectations. And then we make them feel small and, not good enough, and all the negative beliefs we heap on them. Do you want to share a bit more?
You want to hear it from the science perspective? So I'll give you an example. I think as parents, we need to be very critical about, as consumers, especially when you are choosing for your kids, right? You're taking on this responsibility. One thing that we all do is we try to bypass the natural development of the brain. The brain, the way we learn is through speech sounds first and foremost. It has to be speech. You speak, you dance, you sing, you do rhyming, all of those wonderful stuff. And then comes other methods like Shinshida method or like any other method that bypasses the auditory system and you goes, okay, let's flashcards. Now, as a consumer, you should be thinking, hey, now I'm doing this visual system, which means my auditory system is taking a backward step. Now, brain works like this. It works from lower processors to higher processors. When you bypass and then you use the visual method, and when the child grows older, you say, hey, he has difficulty reading and spelling, and you ask why. Why? Because you didn't get the chance for the auditory system to develop, which is the natural system. So I know this is hard. I mean, this is coming from me and from my experience. But developmentally, a lot of the time is letting the child choose. If the play is such an important thing, if your child chooses to play, let them play. Because it is how they express. This is the number one method of how they're dealing with their emotions. Have you ever watched a child play? Get on the floor and you will see all your social cognition emotion happening. They will problem solve for you. And that internal dialogue is how they would then work themselves through in their natural world. So when you get down on the mat, that's when you teach. When the child is not stressed, you don't teach when the child is stressed. Does it make sense? Number one, it's like when I'm angry, if somebody comes and tells me, no, you should think about it in a different way. Do you think I'm listening? No. But we expect our children to do that. When they're tantruming, you are going to reason and you expect them to accept the reasoning. You know, my number one thing when I always tell my parents is, simple thing, the child is there, you just wash your hand and you wipe the face. Would you like that to happen to you if you're just sitting down there? Somebody come, wash his face and do that to you without any warning. Would you like it? You know, it's number one, respect the child as if you are the child. You would solve a lot of the developmental issues. Like, let's say you're not a good cook.
I think one of the concerns, to be very frank, it's like, Shichida is just one of many causes, or that I need to send my child to ballet or piano, and we just swarm their weekend with different causes out of good intention.
Yeah.
And the heart, I think, is I want my child to be ahead of the curve. There's always that competitiveness.
Yes.
But what's something that, we can share with parents, how we do not need to live under the tyranny of expectations?
This is where we had a conversation about confidence. How do you become a confident parent? How do you know what you're choosing is right? You need to spend that time with your child. How do you become a better pianist? You spend 10,000 hours with your pianist. How do you become a better child, a better parent to your child? Spend that many hours, because then you will really get to know the child. Whether the child wants to do ballet, and you would watch them blossom, right? You would pick up the skills because you become more observant. Rather than, it has to be didactic, it has to be two-way, never one-way. The moment it becomes a two-way partnership, you'll pick up skills. You'll be a keen observer. That's how I think parents can match. You can have a child way up the curve, and if you're able to observe, catch, boom.
I hear you. So what you're focusing on, again, like what you shared earlier, is that connection.
Yes.
The more time we spend on my child, instead of with the mental image of what I want my child to be, the more present I am, and then, how do I say, attuned to them.
Yeah, because we always think there's a curve. Imagine if I'm always being put in a curve and a chart, I should be 158 centimeter and 48 kilos. If I don't meet that, I'm in trouble. But that's what we do to our children. From the moment they are born, we expect them to follow this growth chart.
Yeah, true.
We try and box them as soon as they are born. We have to break out of it.
Very good. So, Lynn, I want to move the conversation to family. So sometimes the expectation is not from me as a person, but my family, whether my in-laws or my husband or friends. You look, so how do we then deal with being intentional on what I want for my child? Because I know my child best, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I must say thankfully, my family is quite okay. We do not, in a sense, impose our expectations on our child. But as a parent, I am very mindful that maybe because of where I've come from, my experience, my educational background and all, I might want my child to go a certain way. I mean, I was a lawyer, I practiced, and I would want my child to, if he or she can, to be the cream of the crop. But I think that at the end of it, I want my child to be happy, to be a happy, well-adjusted person. So more than any achievement, which of course is good, but I think that the character building, the fact that my child is well-adjusted, a good self-esteem, self-worth, self-value, self-identity, to navigate life later on as he or she grows up. That to me is even more important. So I feel as a parent, I really want to build a strong, good, happy foundation for my child. And actually, my 3 kids do not go for any enrichment. No tuition.
Yeah.
Aren't you worried that they,
I am.
Should I take them out now? My children should I take them out?
I am because they're in the school system, right? And unless I choose to homeschool them, which I actually had that thought years back when my eldest was born. But unless I choose to homeschool them, I feel that I still need to put them in the school where they have friends, they have this, like you mentioned, ecosystem, social development. I think that I have to wait and decide what kind of child I want to bring up.
Yeah.
And not succumb or crumble under societal
Yeah.
expectations or my own personal expectations of how well my child should do it.
Yep.
But that's it. I try to dialogue. I dialogue with my child. I say that you can stretch yourself a bit academically, in the things that you want to learn, whether it's piano or swimming or anything. We stretch, but if you find that you don't enjoy it, let's I think that's important.
Wonderful. So you expose them and then you push them a bit, but if after a while you just, okay, let them take the lead, not us. In Singapore, I think a lot of parents take the lead, right? And Liyanna, just now you open up something, and actually I wanted to ask you, but with what made you so sure that you wanted to be happy? I think a lot of moms struggle with this. They think self-love is being selfish. And actually there's nothing wrong. Mentally, we know that, right? Like the mask that drops from the aeroplane. While we know that, still the way society looks at you, weren't you concerned that people will say, ayo, her own family, how did you, decide, I don't care what you all say, I am choosing what for me.
I would say this is a very sensitive question and a very personal one, because my divorce actually went viral within our Malay Muslim community. I think it was spread out through different mosques. There were WhatsApp groups talking about it. So it was really, it exploded, the news exploded. But at that point of time, I think what I did was I built a safe circle around myself, and I did a lot of self-reflection. I did a lot of pondering, a lot of negotiation with myself. Okay, if this is what's going to happen, what are your responses? Because before I took the time to be with my safe space, all I did was to react and retaliate. Whenever people talk about my divorce, I react, I retaliate. I defended myself. But then the more I became one with my decisions, I realized that sometimes I can respond, sometimes I don't even need to respond. So that is where I told myself, if I were to really be confident with this decision, I should be strong with whatever circumstances that's going to come and whatever consequences that are going to come. Whether I'm divorced or whether I'm not, people are still going to talk about my motherhood. Because I got married at such a young age, I got children at such a young age. So whether or not I'm divorced or whether or not I'm not divorced, people will always talk. They will always talk about how you mother or how you parent your children. So I realized that this is a different kind of topic. It's not just zooming in about parenting, it's also zooming about how you are as a wife. So I think very junior, what I did was I learned to be the bigger person. I chose my battles. I told myself that this is what I really want, and I'm very proud I made the courageous decision of doing so. And I want to be the voice to share with the women out there that even if you're a single mom, your children can be happy and successful.
Wonderful. I love what you share about creating a safe space, not just for you, but also for your family, so that you're not reacting. Because I think reacting can be very tiring.
Reacting, retaliating, maybe it's not replying. It's different from responding. I learned that responding is different than
Correct.
retaliating.
Responding comes from a space where I'm secure, I'm
Correct.
anchored. Reacting is just you say something I don't like, I'm triggered because I have wounds. But as we deal with your wounds, it provides you that very positive energy or that space from where you came from.
Correct.
Yeah. And I think with that, I want to talk about reactions. I mean, when we talk about how do we recognize a reaction or a response, right? And the topic I want to talk about is when it comes to disciplining children or discipline or punishment. I think that's very real because a lot of parents to ask, no, but I'm disciplining you, but actually it's really a reaction in the moment because I'm so angry already. Yeah, so Puva, would you be able to share from your experience, how do you guide your child, and catch when, so for example, milk spills or like something goes wrong, like, the setup is slow or late, or Liyanna was a bit late. And then how do we be that calm oasis where we're not reacting, but we are actually, okay, this is it, and we deal with it.
So it comes back to the first question you asked. It's about being self-aware, and it's one of those questions which Liyanna also mentioned about being like, how do you respond, react, understand your own triggers, right? So bringing back to my child's spilled milk, that disciplining happens before the event actually occurs. There is a build-up. If you had a bad day already and the milk spills, your reaction is going to be totally different if you had a good day or if you had an average day. So as parents, as mothers, we have to be responsible for our own mental health. So going back to discipline, values, what are our family values? Are we going to be accepting and saying, hey, this milk spill happened, now let's troubleshoot? A lot of the times when parents tell me my child keeps doing the same thing, I keep disciplining, I keep saying the same thing because you don't make any changes. It's like when you're in a workplace, you have what you call those charts. This happens event A, B, and C. Do we have that for our children? Do we give them choices? Is that expectations well spoken out? These are things we need to discuss, but not when the child is making that mistake. Do it when the child is calm. Like, hey, you are having absolutely in a holiday, having a swim. You know what? I think we might look at how you tackle your homework. We are spending a long time there. Don't do it when the child is struggling with that homework. Any disciplining happens when everyone is calm and happy. We set expectations at a nice, happy spot and nobody's feeling sore. If let's say you're cooking and then you already spent so much time, your husband tells you the food is salty at that point of time, imagine how you'd feel. Hey, I've already put in so much effort, now you tell me it's salty. But whereas your husband brings you out, buys you an ice cream and say, hey dear, the other day I think the salt was, how would you take it? Is this better?
I don't remember.
Yeah, did you? So it's a lot of human. We think children are different from adults. No.
And I think I love what you say because nobody studies for an exam on the day itself or just before I go into the exam hall.
Yeah.
But that is often how we respond in our react with our kids, right? Yeah. In the moment we're angry and then we don't take the time to train them prior or to debrief after.
Yeah.
And then our life, and I used to be like that, okay? It's a series of just reaction and reaction and reaction. And then I wonder why my family is so explosive until I decided, no, this madness has to end. And that's where I decided to be a conscious mom, where I began to just hold back, get in touch with my emotions, get in touch with my fears, my triggers, so that when I'm a good space, like what you said, when I am topped up, I don't poison everyone around me, right? Can you imagine if Junior is in a bad space, any words or any action, even when I walk, I glare, you also, everyone die,
Yes. I've been there, I've done that, right? Like on a bad day, it happens to my 3-year-old, same thing. That's why I think we always have to And children are so observant. Although they are young, that conversation you have with your partner, if it is in a bad space, the child knows.
Wonderful. And okay, so now I want to ask Lynn, right? I want to talk about unconscious beliefs because the truth is our beliefs are so unconscious. Example, you should be respect. Let's just use respect. You should respect your elders in our Asian context. So then go and say hello, even if you don't feel like allow it, So how do we separate our unconscious beliefs with being very clear about being conscious to the child's needs in the moment?
I think that I just want to follow up with what you mentioned just now, because when we talk about teaching our child and discipline versus punishment and all that, I think to me discipline is a process of character building. So it's not just for the here and the now, and that has to be what you have to ask me. So because I am looking to what kind of child I want to bring up, what kind of values my child will have, and belief system, and so I think that I will mobilize that unconscious thing, that thing that I desire to see in my child, and say, hey, in this family, we value respect and honor to the elders, to your parents. In this family, we value generosity, the good heart. And we always say this caring is loving, loving is caring, in our family. Yeah, and especially with kids, right? Because I have 3 and they fight all the time. So I consciously try to inculcate, especially in those teachable moments, and I set aside intentional and deliberate moments as well to tell that to my kids.
Wonderful. I love what you share about, just that communication with them and not seeing it like, so what if your child, I'm just going to give you one now. Let's say you ask your child to do something and your child doesn't. And this is the 10th time you've told your child. How would you then respond or react?
Well, first of all, I have to understand why. To me, it's always why and then how. If you know the why, you will know the how. So why is my child not responding to me? Is it because he's visually occupied with something? So because I'm aware of the learning style from my kids, and my eldest is very visual. So if I'm talking to him without coming in front of him, he's likely going to ignore me. I can say 20 times, 30 times, he's not going to respond to me. But I need to catch his visual eye, right? And because that's how I am too, I'm a very visual person, right? But for my girl, it's a bit different. Yeah. So I think that we have to bring across that message in a way that is best, most suited for our child.
Wonderful. I love what you share. So parents remember the why and then the how, yeah? And then it gives us a very customized blueprint for each child. And I think even through the ages, because what may work today may not work tomorrow.
Yeah.
And to always be present, yeah? And Liyanna, I'm going to ask you about studies, because in Singapore, academic is something that, where on Facebook, even as an influencer, where, so many pictures I see, wow, my child win this,
PSLE, the latest PSLE.
PSLE, the results, and, yeah. So, it's that swing from, my trophy child. Look at how well behaved my child is, how pretty or how academically, ahead of the, so how do we, I think a lot of parents, sometimes in the privacy of our homes, we punish our kids. I mean, I remember one of my daughter at dinner time told me, one of her friends went to school and couldn't write because her whole hand was hit by the father until it was, and she couldn't write. And the father said, for every score you get, so 100 marks, right, for spelling, every one score you miss, you get 1 hit. So even if she got 92, she got 8 hits.
Wow.
My daughter was primary 4. Yeah, primary 4. So 8 hits. And no, I'm just sharing this because I think that's the reality for a lot of parents. And even for me, I think years ago when my kids didn't do well, I mean, spelling time was always most stressful for me because we're 3 going to primary school then. Okay, now Chinese spelling is the worst. Come, let's practice your things here. And it was something that I didn't enjoy. And then when results come back, like, so how do we empower parents in that stress that parents, because I think parents come from, I want my child to do well. And then when they don't, what am I going to do? And so we resort to, cane or harsh words. So any advice?
That's a beautiful question that I think that situation we go through almost every day. I remember when my child didn't get full mark for his spelling, and this is coming from someone who's my children's father actually have a PhD in education. So the standard is like up there, and I'm like, oh no, I need to do the best so that he can grow up to be as good as his father. But then again, at that point of time, I think parents need to not be too hard on themselves first, because I know the disappointment is valid. You've done your best. You tried everything. You make sure that you do your best with the spelling or any other form of test. And at the end of the day, when you get a very negative result, you're like, what did I do wrong? So there's disappointment. There's a feeling of failure. There's a feeling of like, what's wrong with my child? There's a feeling of like comparison. So there's layers and layers of doubts that's happening at the same time on you and also on your child. So I love what Pooja was saying at that point of time. How was your reaction? Because if you were to hit your child, it's not going to change the result. It's just going to make that child have an entirely different relationship altogether with tests. So I realized that this is based on my experience. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a PhD in education, but this is based on my experience. You change the style of your teaching, especially for tests. Let's look at the test. Change your style of teaching. If this doesn't work, there's A, B, C, D, E, other styles of negotiation that you can try to explore. So I realized, right, Junior, I think parents need to just take a step back. Okay, I've done my best in A. A is not going to work. Let's try B. Because if you hit your child, it's just going to have an entirely different relation between the child and the test, the child and the school, the child and the teacher, the child and that subject, the child and you, the child and education as a whole. So like I said previously, it's an ecosystem, a domino effect. You started on a wrong foot, it's going to have a very harmful effect for the rest of that child's life. So it may be just one test for you, but it's an entire experience for that child.
I love how you zoom out,
Yeah.
because I think in the moment when we zoom in on a problem, the problem is the only thing I see. But when we take many steps back and we zoom out, no longer is it such a big problem. One test in an entire year, where they probably have like 50 tests, and it doesn't make a difference. And we expand more across 20 years of education, then we realize that, hey, in perspective, is it really worth the pain for them, for me, for their life, that scarring?
Yeah, and if I may add, and to be acknowledge and reward effort,
Yeah.
not only just
Yeah.
achievement.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, true. I think so many of us are so focused on results, the goal, the end point, that we fail to enjoy the process, right?
It's a lot of moments of realization for us through this conversation, Junior? So it's like, okay, I'm going to do it better. Very good, very healthy conversation. I love it. I love this.
Okay, so let's talk about interactions, because I think we don't live as an individual. Sometimes I'm conscious, right? But let's say I live with my husband and we have different points of view. So in the same household, a lot more layers. So Puva, I want to ask you, when we talk about daily interactions, how do you agree to disagree? You know, with you and your husband, if you have a different point of view, right? Because both are correct.
Yeah, I'm going back to my belief, harness on the person's strengths. We are all different, we are unique. I may be good at cooking and cleaning. My husband is better at storytelling and playing. Let's split it back then. But you have clear boundaries, like what Lynn was saying. We will do everything with respect, with your family values, with what has been agreed beforehand, not at the point of conflict. Everything agreed beforehand, and there we go. I think it's all about making everyone feel good about themselves, and it starts at home. It's appreciating your partner for the strength. He could be better at holding space when you are feeling angry and your child is falling tantrum. And if you know your partner's strength is holding space, which is just standing there, let the child tantrum, tap on it. It's actually knowing. I mean, as women of the house, this is mom saying, as women of the house, the skill is to know the strength of each, your helper, your husband, your mom. It's like using who is going to be best for what.
I love how you bring that, because I think sometimes without realizing, we're focusing on what you didn't do, where you fall short, what you can do better, instead of celebrating, hey, you did this, okay, outsource to you so you can improve on your strengths.
Yes.
I love what you I love you on sharing that. And Lynn, I want to ask because you did mention that you are food is important to you, and yet your husband is not aligned with your organic food. You know, so in this case, how do you actually deal with that in real life?
Okay, first and foremost, I really like the word respect that you mentioned just now because I think that when it comes to any disagreement or difference in opinion rather, yeah, we have to be very mindful that my kids are listening in, and because we are modeling how we want to treat someone, especially someone who's important in the family. So I have to model respect, and we have to agree to disagree. And yeah, so when you mentioned about organic, let me clarify, okay? Because I am really into eating healthy, organic, non-synthetic. And I think it really came about, the background to this is of course when my eldest was born, he had a congenital problem and he had an operation right when he was born. And so he was hospitalized for like 6 weeks. And so to me, that brought me on a journey to discover how did this happen in his development while in the womb. And so it brought me to maybe getting organic, eating healthy. And so when I first brought it up to my husband, to him, okay, he agrees we need to eat healthy. But maybe you don't have to really be organic. You don't have to look at the products you use for your hair, your shampoo, your face, your skin, the things that I use to clean the house and stuff. And I said, I believe in it, let's try it. And he agrees. He agrees, okay, so I'm the one handling it. So he does it. But then what happened is, a few years later, he came around to it. And he said, oh, I think that this organic thing is really good.
Wow.
Things synthetic free, and all that. So
A few years later, that is the
yeah, and I went like, oh wow, this is amazing, this is great.
Yeah.
So I think that respecting the different opinions is good.
So question, right? In a period, I love when you said a few years later because sometimes we are so fast paced that I say something now we need to align on this now. So when you share about the food, right? Did you slowly transit or was it cold turkey?
I think I had to explain to you why I feel it was important for the kids, the family to go organic and to go as much as we can. I mean, organic is expensive.
Yes.
And when I first
Three times the price.
When I first started on that journey, like 11, 12 years ago, it was not so easily available. I had to hunt high and low for organic stuff. And so I explained it to him why I think it's important for our kids to do it. And then, and we started. And then, of course, I introduced it gradually. It spread to the whole family. Yeah.
Wonderful. I love because I'm hearing a similarity. Like for you, you did your research. It was grounded on something, just like Liyanna, right? When she was sure, she thought through. And I think the deeper we dare to drill down on our beliefs or in even questioning our older beliefs, it anchors us because then we hit a bedrock where we are very, very sure. And then we become unmovable, having done the process. Right? I think if we don't do the process, unconsciously our beliefs hijack our lives. Yeah. And Liyanna, so I want to ask you, right? Let's see. Okay, you talk about the language of understanding. That's very interesting because now with the divorce, your husband is still the father and you are still the mother. How do you connect or agree to disagree?
So I can't help but admire the beautiful relationship between husband and wife. When I listen to my friends talking about negotiation, compromising, and it takes double the effort and double the job when you're separated. Right now, the children are in 2 different households. They go back to 2 different parents. The parents have. My ex-husband has an entirely way of raising the children. I have an entirely different way of raising the children. And I think we had a conversation before within the 4 of us where we use the head as a parent instead of the head of a spouse. Yeah. So this is where we are separated, but we still have a common denominator, which is our children. And this is a time where we put aside our selfish needs and we prioritize the children's need. And especially when you're separated, of course, the baggage is there, like, the past, the bitterness of the stories of the past. But this is where I put down my head as an ex-spouse or as a spouse, and I said, okay, these are my children need. What do you think of that? So it really has to do with ego, because I'm very strong on my ego, right? No, I want this. I'm the mother. I know what's best for my children. But sometimes I think we need to take a step back and also trust that fathers too can do it.
Yeah.
Like mothers, I mean, hands down, we know what's best for our children, right? Hands down, right, June? Like, we know what's best. Organic is always better, but sometimes, Junior, we need to also give it to the fathers. They
Yeah.
can too. They will too. They are able as well. So this is where lots of compromising, and it takes a lot of like, okay, Liyanna, it's okay, slow down. I call my naughty self Sabrina. So my naughty self, my naughty voice, right? Always like, no, Liyanna, what are you doing? Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't give it to him. So Sabrina will be like, no, don't do it. But then the conscious Liyanna will be like, hold on, trust him, he can. So it's a lot of like work on the self. Really, we mothers, like we are giving, contributing, putting in a lot on the tables. But in reality, we also have a lot of work that we have to do within ourselves. Yeah.
I love how you have this different persona, but it's very powerful because in psychology, when you can actually distinct a persona like that, you then recognize the voice easier, and it doesn't hijack your conversation. And then we think our inner dialogue that is my thoughts, right? But we can separate it from no, that's not why I am about. Now let's call forth the conscious Liyanna. I love that. I would have to think of a name for my not so positive self. So viewers, I want to take some time to ask you if you've got any questions, please type them in. Yeah. And moving on, I want to talk about this thing about labels. I think labels, whether good or bad, right? Where I say, oh, you are so smart, or wow, you are so helpful. Much less those that you're slow or you're not good enough, right? So, Puva, can you share about how labels actually impact a child's self-esteem?
So it's a very, very tricky ground. When you overpraise, your child actually begins to feel the pressure of performing all the time. So it comes with even toileting. Let's say your child toilet train, you praise it, wow, you did it. And suddenly one day he's not able to hold the pee, and let's say he pees. That fall is so much because we overpraised. So it starts with something very simple, like when your child does something good, why do we need to praise? Why don't we think he is innately intelligent to perform that stuff? Whatever he just did is to be a silent observer. Don't say, yeah, not for everything. It's more like, I see that you did that well. Be very specific. You put that Lego block together. Your handwriting is amazing. So that way, when you're specific, you're not overgeneralizing, you're reducing the pressure.
Wonderful. And what I'm hearing about what you're saying is you're describing the particular action that they are doing.
Yes. You're not labeling the person, you're not building that pressure. It's very skill specific. That way, I mean, praise is a double-edged sword. The card has to be played very nicely. And we have to think it's like us at work, right? If somebody constantly tells you, and then imagine if you underperform, the amount of anxiety. So when we overpraise, what happens is that we're building anxiety within our children to keep up that performance. So
I hear you. So I want to ask Lynn, right? When we talk about the growth mindset, or even, overpraising is one, but sometimes in Asia, I mean, I don't know from where you grew up, we tend to be a bit stingy with our praises or not encouragements, right? So Lynn, I just want to hear, just now earlier you talked about growth mindset. How do you find that balance when you encourage them,
Yeah, so I really like the fact that praise has to be balanced, affirmation. But because I'm constantly, like I mentioned, character building is a process. It's a lifelong process as a parent. Even for ourselves, building our own character and seeing it in our kids, right? So to me, I think that I have to know where my kids are and how they are feeling, how they see themselves. So self-esteem, self-worth, self-identity, self-value, these are the foundation to our kids being well-adjusted and successful adult in life. And so I will have to understand my child individual his personality and how he thinks. Like for example, my girl, right? Actually, she struggled. When she was 5, 6, she couldn't read at all, and I feel that developmentally, I mean, she struggled. So she was really not confident in class in kindergarten, but surprisingly, it was strange. In her mother tongue, she did so well. Wow. But in English, she really struggled. Spelling would take 3, 4 hours. Yeah, and it was really hard for us. So, and of course, I discovered it, and I think that it really affected her esteem. And so I had to make sure I give her extra burden, praise, affirmation in who she is as a person, not just in what she can do, and to build her up. And I'm thankful to say now she's 8. She reads marvelously, thankfully, and she's much happier and more confident as a person.
Wonderful. I love that balance, right? Like when they are not enough emotionally topped up, we just encourage and encourage. And Liyanna, yeah, so I want to ask you, how do we, with regards to standards, how do you, because you say your husband has a different way of bringing up the kids. Your ex-husband has a different way of bringing up the kids, and in your household is different.
Yeah.
Yes, how do your kids adjust, and how do you help them be happy wherever they are?
Just now as I was listening to Lynn's daughter's story, like she was struggling with spelling, and then now she's at a better place. That's exactly what happened to my children. So at such a young age, they had to adapt to a huge curve ball of change. Like, some other children were just like, okay, just in one unit, okay, just going to school and forth. But for my 3 children, like, they have to force themselves to follow 2 different parents, 2 different in-laws, 2 different households, and the schedule kept changing. Sometimes it's 2 days here, sometimes it's 5 days there, and I'm actually very surprised that they are, I would say, resilient.
Yeah.
I'm very surprised at such a young age, Junior, I'm amazed by their capacity in able to adapt to an entirely different schedule, different household, different standard of living. And I think my book was because of them, their lessons. Like my book is called the resilience of within the scars. I learned it from them. So I was saying to myself, if they could do it, if they can just like, okay, I'm right now here, my mind is gonna follow this context. Tomorrow I'm gonna be at Mama's house, I'm gonna follow that context. I'm surprised that there wasn't much work I need to do, because I thought I'm going to have to double up or triple up my work, having to, go through everything with them. But I'm surprised, Junior, that they're actually very capable beings. Like, I underestimated my children. I thought they was just 3-year-old, 4-year-old. They couldn't do it. They wouldn't understand. But actually, that's where I'm wrong. They are very clever, informed, capable human beings. Just that they come in very tiny minion size.
And I love what you say, because I think often kids are the most adaptable. It's us that when we go on a holiday, for example, we need to plan, down to the, but for kids, okay. And then, example, the train or whatever comes late, it's fine. Then they will play, wherever. So I think that's something that our kids are really our greatest teachers. That we can really learn so much from them if we choose to open our hearts to allow our children to be our teachers. So I trust that was an amazing session. And in conclusion, is there one actionable tip that you want to leave our audience with, Puva?
Actionable tip. Well, different, like you just mentioned, children, as their age progresses, the tips also change, right? So if you have a mother or a father of a younger kid between the ages of 1 to 4, please play. If you're a parent between 5 to 8, please play and read. If you're between 8 to 12, play, read, and respect boundaries. Explore new topics together, understand their interests. But across the ages, you have to believe that this is God's creation, and they are intelligent, beautiful, self-sufficient people.
Wonderful. I love what you share. And Lynn?
And I think we agree that our kids is so precious to us, right? So, and because they are precious, I think take time to know your child, take time to play,
Yep.
take time to communicate, and really to take time, because parenting requires a lot of patience.
Correct.
So much patience, and it requires a lot out of us, that reservoir, of love. You take time to fill the love tank, and I feel that once a child's love tank is filled, many things can be done. Right? So take time to fill the love tank.
You remind me of what I did last night with my daughter. So I was so angry. I was stressed. Okay, I was stressed about today. There were so many things that even up to now haven't done. And I was so upset. So I scolded my number 3, Danielle. I scolded her something I can't remember. After I scolded her, tears came down, and they haven't cried for a long time, right? So, and when I saw the tears, right, and I actually centered myself, I just got present to how sad she was, and I could feel her sadness, and immediately my anger literally dissipated. I went to her and I said, I'm so sorry. And then I held her and I brought her to the room and then I hugged her. And I just began to talk to her. In that moment, I began to connect with her. And at the back of my head, you still need to understand, there's so many things that I haven't done, and that was like 10 plus 11 already. And then as I hugged her and I just connected with her, I said, hey, I am so sorry. I am taking it out on you. Mommy is stressed, and instead of dealing with what I need to do, I'm just lashing out on you, and I'm so sorry, because that is not love. And and in just that conversation, from crying, she was in such a good space, and I can literally feel the connection coming back again. And then as I was lying down with her, she said, don't you have to go and do work? I said, no, it's okay. It really doesn't matter what will happen tomorrow. It really doesn't matter the amount of work that I haven't done. What matters is you and me in this moment. And when I begin to, like what I say, zoom out again, in that moment I was like, okay, then few people, okay, this had not done, it's okay. It's okay. What's important is you. You matter, and you need to know that you matter to me.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really because our kids are so precious. I think that we cannot expect them to just grow up
Yeah.
and how we want them to grow up, right?
Yeah.
Without taking the time to connect, to spend with them. Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you for teaching us to slow down. And Liyanna?
I would love to take this opportunity to congratulate Junia for all that she has done. 11, she's still thinking about work. She's a mother as well, and you made this happen. Really inspiring role model. So let's just take this opportunity to do that.
thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you,
I think we
Liyanna.
need to support each other, because mothers are going through so much. We just need to lift each other's up. I love what Junia, Lynn, and Pooja says about taking time. I think we need to take more. I feel guilty, sometimes when I watch 1 hour of Netflix, I'm like, oh my god, my children need me. But then,
For yourself
it's
is
important. Exactly. So when I listen to this conversation, I think mommies, daddies, it's never too late to make things right.
Yeah.
So if you have hit your child before,
Yeah.
you can try again not to hit them.
Yeah.
If you have neglected their education before, it's never too late to try to understand what is fraction, what is decimal, to try again. If you have given them, I don't know, food with MSG before, it's never too late to try
I
to
like
learn
that.
organic.
Yes.
So don't think that, oh, my child is already 12, it's too late for me. It's never too late to make things right.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And thank you, Junia. Really happy to be part of this platform.
Yeah.
It's a joy. And so with that, thank you so much for taking time to join us in the rise of really conscious parenting. And I want to conclude with really what Liyanna said. Wherever you are in a perfect space. Wherever your kids are, they are in a perfect space. Because we can't do anything about the past, but we can shape the present, which will then create a beautiful future for us, yeah? So stay tuned. We are just going to do some live lucky draw now. So if you are live, stay tuned to answer. Charlene is going to take you on as we give our panelists a round of applause again. And stay tuned, okay, today, tomorrow, and the day after. Thank you.
Thank you.